Val Venis was a man who lasted over a decade in the WWE, and throughout pretty much all of his run, he was a jobber who would spend most of his time on the lower end of the card. But he would have a few title reigns here and there, and when it was all said and done, he had a respectable run in the WWE, but in recent years, a lot of respect has been lost for Val Venis by fans and other wrestlers in the industry. And that's thanks to his controversial social media presence and posts, and all of his enemies he's made along the way because of it. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's discuss the downfall of Sean Morley, otherwise known as Val Venis. Sean Morley was signed to the then WWF in 1998, but he had debuted in wrestling a few years prior in 1994, and brought lots of experience having worked across the States, Mexico and Japan. And whilst Morley was quite a serious competitor throughout his career, when he arrived in the WWE, he was given the character of Val Venis, an adult movie star gimmick. Obviously this was during an era of wrestling where it was Car Crash TV Weekly, so Val Venis just blended right in. And in his debut year in 1998, he would be part of all sorts of antics on TV, such as when he was involved in a feud with the Kaientai stable, where we would get to see the infamous quote, "choppy choppy pee pee" moment take place, where the manager of Kaientai would tie Val Venis up and choppy choppy pee pee. I can't believe I just said all of that out loud. Man, what a wild era of wrestling this was. Val Venis would mostly be on the lower card, but would get a few title reigns under his belt, as at the start of 1999, he'd win the Intercontinental title, and he would only hold the belt for 29 days, but at the end of the year would capture the European title as well. This reign lasted for 56 days, ending in February 2000, so a little better, and he would have another reign that year with the IC title, winning it in the summer and holding it for 58 days. He'd spend the rest of 2000 and 2001 as part of the Right to Censor stable, which were definitely a memorable group. They were basically a stable made up of guys and girls who wanted to censor the WWE, and were basically a parody of the Parents Television Council, who the WWE had been having some trouble with. The Right to Censor stable faded out in 2001, and the WWE clearly had no idea what to do with Val Venis, so he was sent back down to developmental and removed off of the main roster. Surprisingly though, Val Venis would actually return to the main roster in 2002, and would rebrand to using his real name of Sean Morley, which then became Chief Morley. Chief Morley would get a tag title reign with Lance Storm, as he was awarded the belt as Lance Storm and William Regal were the champions, but after Regal was sidelined with illness, Chief Morley became the other tag champ alongside Storm. They would hold the belts for only a week though, before losing them to Kane and Rob Van Dam, and after this he'd return back to the Val Venis name and gimmick, and would float around the main roster for the next 6 years. No idea how he lasted that long, but he was being used as a jobber, and as the years went on, the more occasional his TV appearances became, as he was mostly being used on B shows like Heat and on house shows. He had lasted in the WWE all the way until 2009, but he had been mostly phased out, as his gimmick didn't exactly align with WWE's new PG programming that they were under from 2008, and he was released from his contract in January 2009, ending an over 10-year run with the company. From here, Val Venis would go back to using his real name of Sean Morley again, and would spend much of the rest of 2009 working for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and would also work the Hulkamania Let the Battle Begin tour at the end of the year. If you aren't aware, the Hulkamania Let the Battle Begin tour was the Australian wrestling tour that was booked and promoted by Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff, which featured a whole load of washed up wrestling stars. And of course, around the same time that this tour was running was when Hulk Hogan became a consultant for TNA, and would become a big part of the decision making process for the company, which would include him signing all the washed up wrestlers who he brought on tour over to TNA Wrestling, and that of course included Sean Morley. He signed for TNA and made his debut on the January 4th, 2010 Monday Night TNA Impact episode, and would get himself into a match with Daniels for the Genesis pay-per-view. And if you know anything about TNA or my thoughts on TNA, you'd know that Sean Morley beating Daniels in this god-awful match at Genesis was the beginning beginning of the end for the Hogan era of TNA and a sign of things to come for the Hogan era of TNA. He'd have 2 more matches for the company against Desmond Wolfe and Jeff Jarrett, but on March 5th he announced he was done with TNA. And this was all due to TNA's move to Monday nights, as he explained, and the fact that he wanted to work for CMLL at the same time, which he wasn't going to be able to do, and thus his TNA run ended after just 2 measly months. But the damage to TNA from those 2 months alone had been done, and from there Morley returned back to the Indies, where he would be somewhat active for the first couple of years beyond his return, but as the years went on and the older he got, the appearances would lessen and lessen. And though Sean Morley still makes the occasional wrestling appearance to this day and isn't technically retired from wrestling, it's not wrestling that he's exactly known for anymore. As in February 2020, the man once known as Val Venus would find himself in the limelight once again and in hot water with the wrestling world. And this was due to a series of social media posts attacking AEW for their decision to give Nyla Rose their women's championship. For context, for anyone who doesn't know, Nyla Rose is a transgender woman, and Morley's comments essentially boiled down to saying that Nyla didn't deserve to have the title because of this. And yeah, like I said, this got him major heat with the wrestling world, with many coming to the defense of Nyla, namely Cody Rhodes, who would fire back at Sean Morley. And after this, the Twitter and social media ramblings from Morley would never stop, and it's kind of all he's really known for nowadays. In 2021, his Twitter account was banned after... sorry, I don't think I can read that on video. What is wrong with this guy? And even now in 2024, Val Venus is still going, and it would all kick off again this year, and it all started when he came for Cody Rhodes once again in February, once again coming after him for his support of transgenderism, and the anti-trans sentiment and postings would continue from Val and are still going, so much so that wrestling fans have taken matters into their own hands and given Val Venus a taste of his own medicine. As Twitter users Matt Cohn and Hang'em High would collectively file for the trademark for the term Val Venus and now seemingly own it, as well as buying the domain name for valvenus.com, which now redirects to the National Center for Transgender Equality's website. And all in all, Sean Morley's reputation in wrestling is kinda completely in the gutter. And what was once a respectable career as a lower to mid-card worker is a career that a lot of people don't respect anymore, and that's because of his social media ramblings and activity, which look as though is probably never going to end. Val Venus actually wrestled as recently as May 2023 on record, and though he isn't technically retired like I said, I just can't see any reason for any promotion to want to book him. And besides, the guy is like 53 and probably shouldn't be working anyway, but with the controversy he's drew around himself and the bridges in the industry he's burnt already, I just can't see a promoter thinking that it's a good idea to book him. Guys, that's it from me talking about the downfall of Val Venus, aka Sean Morley, and how the guy has kind of fallen off of the deep end. Make sure to like this video, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye, and keep on rolling.